regionalism is on the rise. If we talk about in 1990s, there were around 50 RTAs, regional trade agreements. Now more than 350 regional trade agreements. Even India has signed around 6, 7 FTAs in the recent past. So regionalism is on the rise. There's no doubt. And that create a problem of what we called in international trade spaghetti ball, where you have multiple of rules and regulation. Countries, maybe you are giving concession to one country, maybe to European Union, then to you are giving concession to other developing or developed countries. So we have multiple rules and regulation when we are talking about the regionalism.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to our sixth episode of our podcast series, Reimagining the Bay of Bengal, presented by Asian Confluence, and I'm your host, Neeraj. Today, we are driving into the evolving landscape of economic ties and regional frameworks, exploring how they can drive sustainable growth in this interconnected region. Asian Confluence has established the Center of Bay of Bengal Studies in Shillong to promote research, dialogue, and collaboration on the region's shared future. So, in this particular episode, we are delving into strengthening regional cooperation in a fractured multilateral system. As always, we'll unpack this through five thought provoking questions designed to spark clarity. And today, we are very lucky to join by Professor Sachin Kumar Sharma, who is a Director General of Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS, New Delhi. He has, with over 2 decades of expertise in international trade, development cooperation, and multilateral and regional negotiation. His work has influenced discussions on trade and development, agriculture subsidies, investment, food security, sustainability, market access, and trade disputes. Before joining RIS, he was a professor at the Center for WTO Studies at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade and represented India in South-South cooperation at the WTO. He is a prolific scholar and has authored 6 books, numerous peer-reviewed articles, working papers, and book chapters. Professor Sharma, it's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Neeraj, for inviting me for this very important podcast. And I also thank the organizer for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So, let's begin our first question. And in your opinion, sir, is regionalism emerging as a genuine corrective to the shortcomings of multilateralism, or is it just merely a temporary stopgap? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neeraj. If I see your question, there are 2 or 3 sub questions within the question. Let I give you one comprehensive picture about regionalism and multilateralism and how I see this multilateralism and regionalism. 2 points about the connection or the relation between multilateralism and how the regionalism has evolved. If you go historically, then one message is very clear that regionalism and multilateralism go hand in hand. They are not contradictory to each other. If historically see, before the WTO we had the GATT agreement, and under the GATT 1947 there are various round of negotiation happen, and one in the one round, that was Tokyo round, there was the expansion of European Economic Community. Then we talk about the Uruguay round, then NAFTA had come around 90, after 1986, 88, around NAFTA came into existence. And even when WTO came, we have seen that series of regional organizations or regional trade agreements is happening. So what I've wanted to say, the underlying fact is that both multilateralism and regionalism are not contradictory to each other. But then why this question are coming, that why multilateralism, the faith in the multilateralism is fading? It has 2 specific point I would like to say, that when we are talking about the multilateralism, then the negotiation being stalled for a long time. For instance, in if I take the example of WTO, there are around 166 countries are there. They have their divergent priority, very different priorities they have. Let's talk about developing country. They talk about centrality of development agenda, spatial and differential treatment, agriculture, food security, and the historical asymmetries in all these multilateral organizations, whether it's the UN or whether it's WTO or other organization. Now, take the example of the developed country, their priorities. They wanted e-commerce, standards, sustainability, government procurement. So one issue is that due to divergent priorities of developing and developed country, this is the one issue why there is stalemate of negotiation at the multilateral level. The second point, which is also very important, if the rules are there, whether these rules can be enforceable. Now, the enforceability of rules is also is a very big question. And specifically to the WTO, after the US position had taken at the appellate body, now dispute settlement body at the WTO is totally disrupt. So we see that countries, what is the implication for this? We see a country, if they are not comply with its obligation at the WTO, other country can't force them because there are no enforceability of the rules. With these two things, the faith in the multilateralism is going down. Now I'm talking about your second question about the regionalism. Regionalism is on the rise. If we talk about in 1990s, there were around 50 RTAs, regional trade agreement. Now more than 350 regional trade agreements. Even India has signed around 6, 7 FTAs in the recent past. So regionalism is on the rise. There's no doubt. And that create a problem of what we called in international trade spaghetti ball, where you have multiple of rules and regulation. Countries, maybe you are giving concession to one country, maybe to European Union, then to you are giving concession to other developing or developed countries. So we have multiple rules and regulation when we are talking about the regionalism. But historically, from even 1950 onwards, both are coexist with each other. Now, the third part, whether it is a, you can say, corrective measures for the multilateral or is a temporary stopgap. My answer will be both. Regionalism nowadays, if you see how fast they are moving, it is because there is stalemate in the negotiation, which I already explained to you. And the second point, even if the regionalism is going up, the problem here, if we put in the perspective, is that new issue keep emerging in the regionalism. And if we are not address this issue in the multilateral level, then the countries come together and they discuss it. So therefore, for the way I think that regionalism are the building block for the multilateralism. Yes, these are the corrective measures. And the second is a temporary stopover. I can say that this issue which we are discussing at the regional level, they ultimately will go to the multilateral level. Why? Because the participants in or the countries who are participating in the regional agreements, they will take this issue at the multilateral level. But about the temporary, whether temporary is 1 year, 2 year, or 10 years, we can't define this temporary stopover. But ultimately, this issue, whenever this whole smoke will settle down, these things will come to the multilateral level. So therefore, both multilateral and regionalism will coexist. And both the questions are, I totally agree. It is a corrective measure towards what is happening at the multilateral level, as well as is also temporary stopover. And what is the temporary? Still, I also don't know. Thank you very much.
So it's a that's a very nuanced take, and it really frames the debate on the debate on global versus regional approaches. And with this, I think I'll come to my second question. And sir, with the emerge of minilateral groupings, do you think that traditional regional cooperation also, it's being sidelined here? What is your opinion on it?
How I see the engagement of the different countries. You take any country, they engage globally in different layers through bilateral, through regional, through multilateral platform. You take even the Bangladesh case, or you take India case, or Thailand. So all countries are discussing their issue bilateral at level, regional level, and then the multilateral level. Then this minilateral also come. I don't think that this minilateral will sideline the regional organization. Like I mentioned in my previous question, that regionalism and multilateralism also coexist. Similarly, minilateral and the regional organization will also exist. And why it happened that countries take very different form of engagement? Because they think that if they choose one set of organization or another format of organization, maybe their issue can be fast resolved, or maybe like-minded people come together for a specific issue which they think that in regional organization they would not uh, further in a very fast forward mode. So that's why the countries take very different engagement. Even if you talk about the Quad or I2, U2 or Pax Silca, all these are like informal consultative mechanism where the countries come together to discuss a specific issue. And nowadays, what are the specific issue? Critical mineral, supply chain resilience. These are the issues where the countries come together and to see that how this issue or challenges can address carefully. And in terms of regionalism, if we're talking about the BIMSTEC also have seven priority areas, very institutional framework with the BIMSTEC secretariat in place. It's not informal like Quad or I2U2 or Pax Silca. It has the institutional uh, structure is there. And here also countries are discussing much more broader issues, maybe agriculture, environment, security, then science and technology, and other development cooperation area they are discussing with each other. So from my point of view, both exist with each other, and I don't think that one would sideline other. I don't think so in that way. And it may happen that this minilateral, when the countries, more country included in that, maybe they we can also take the format of regionalism as well. Things move. The underlying fact is that a country engage in world affair through different formats, whether it's a bilateral, multilateral, or regional organization. It's all about the issue, about the interest, and how they are making the coalition.
Uh, that's a very important perspective because seeing minilaterals with a broader cooperation really is a key. Now coming to the Bay of Bengal, the Bay of Bengal holds very immense potential for these kind of enhanced ties. So my next question is that what are the initiatives or the mechanism could be pursued to strengthen the regional cooperation in the Bay of Bengal region?
Neeraj, I always believe that to enhance the cooperation,
Hmm.
first we need to see what is happening at the moment, how the existing parties to the BIMSTEC or the countries are collaborating or doing the cooperation. And when you go to the BIMSTEC, then you will find that seven priority areas are there for the BIMSTEC countries, whether it is agriculture, environment, security, people to people, science and technology, and these seven areas. There are seven areas, and each area is led by a particular country. There are seven countries. There are seven priority areas. So each country are discussing with other country, the lead country discussing other the six parties, and they come out, they address, they do the consultation, they address the challenges, and come out the framework how to take it forward. Now, further, how we can take it forward? Let we go back to last BIMSTEC summit, which happened in Thailand. I really like the idea of Vision 2030 of the BIMSTEC. And the vision, if I make it very simple, what they are trying to make BIMSTEC to pro BIMSTEC. What is the pro BIMSTEC? Prosperous, resilience, and open BIMSTEC, where the countries come together, discuss these several priority areas for the welfare of the people who are residing in this BIMSTEC region. Now, how to enhance the cooperation? Cooperation can only be through the dialogue, intense engagement. And this engagement can be multiple layer through which we can do it. For instance, government to government, track one, or people to people, track two. But there is another layer, that is track 1.5, where people and think tank or the government officials come together and they address this issue and the challenges of people who are facing the challenges in the BIMSTEC countries. Important point here, when I see the BIMSTEC countries, the issue and the seven issue, there is need to be dialogue. And at the moment when we see the world, you will also agree with me that there is one scarce commodity, that is trust at the moment. And how we build this trust, we can build the trust only through three elements, that is engagement, engagement, and engagement. I would like to highlight the role of the think tank. Last month, RIS conducted a capacity building program on for the research scholar, young research scholar from the BIMSTEC countries. There are young scholars came from BIMSTEC countries. Around 70 scholars attended that capacity building program. And what was the aim? The aim was the same question: how to enhance the cooperation. Then we also did the call for paper, where the young scholar now coming with the innovative idea to how to address the challenges of the BIMSTEC countries. And that's what we are looking forward to that report. The second point, the event we did, it was the fourth Bay of Bengal Economic Dialogue, where all BIMSTEC think tank partners, they came here in Delhi and they discussed how to take forward the agenda, development agenda under the BIMSTEC. But yes, think tank role is extremely important, and in RIS, we wanted to play important role in strengthening the BIMSTEC.
Those ideas sounds very actionable, and they could propel the region forward. And in the regional framework also, not all voices are equal, but inclusivity, it really matters. And with this, I'll come to my next question. So sir, how important is the role of middle and smaller region state in shaping cooperation? And second part of this question is, how can there be an agency be strengthened within the existing regional framework in the Bay of Bengal region? What is your take on it?
Neeraj, I can reframe this question, your question about small and middle states. I look at like a developing and least developed countries, and I start with how the even small countries or the LDC countries, they come together and they change the whole narrative at the multilateral level. I give you some example. There are only four countries, quote and C4 country, what we call it, including the African countries. One or two name are Burkina Faso, Chad, Benin. So these countries come together and they built a narrative that how the US cotton subsidy is hurting the farmers in the two African countries. Then in the multilateral grouping, you have the LDC group, where all the LDC countries come together to further their interest, and they make the coalition. And one example was the duty-free, quota-free access in many other countries. You take the another example of Pacific Island, small Pacific Island, and how they built a narrative about the climate change. So there is strength when the small states come together or LDC countries come together, they can build a narrative and it will be very impactful. Now coming to the BIMSTEC countries, if I take the example of the BIMSTEC country, here as I mentioned, there are several priority areas, and each country is leading that priority areas. For instance, Bangladesh is leading trade angle. Myanmar is taking agriculture, leading the agriculture priority area. Similarly, other countries also leading each and every area according to their situation and how they prioritize that specific topic. Maybe for the Nepal, people to people contact or the tourism is important. Sri Lanka is a science and technology lead there is taking. So here the even the small uh, countries, or you can say the least developed countries, are also making impact. The role here is that when we are talking about the beam stack, all countries are equal, and that's why each country leading in one priority areas. So with this, I can say that whether it's a middle or small or LDC or developing country, if really we wanted to make an impact for the welfare of the people, then we have to come together, irrespective of size, irrespective of status in terms of LDC or is a developing country. And many of the LDC in this BIMSTEC region will graduate very soon. So overall, it is cooperation among all the BIMSTEC countries and how we can take it forward.
Uh, that's a very vital emphasis, and empowering these small state ensures equitable progress, I believe. And the role of RIS also, it was very insightful to know about the initiative which RIS has recently conducted, capacity building program and Bay of Bengal dialogue. And now moving forward, and that would be my last question to you, sir. In a world where multilateral enforcement is challenged and the value of norms persist, so in your belief, in a fractured multilateral order where enforcement mechanism remain very weak, so do you think that do international laws and norms are still remain relevant in this era?
The first question is why we need rule and regulation. This is the first question, very simple. Why we need it? Because it will lead to predictability, it will lead to trust. And even if the rules exist, if there is no enforceability of these rules, yes, the faith decline, but it doesn't make all these rules and regulation irrelevant. These rules and regulations still relevant. You take any action, even the recent time, even if the country is taking unilateral action at the international level, they also take or they cite some sort of international law, whether in the excuse of security clause or they will do the selective interpretation. So international law are very important and will remain important. And even if you're talking about regionalism or regional trade agreement, when we do the trade agreement, what is the first basis? First basis is always the multilateral rules or the international law. And from there, the countries take further commitments. And these commitments can be in form of the tariff concession or some concession in terms of the regulation framework. So from my point of view, these rules are very relevant. But now come to the broader question. Neeraj, in uh, in this changing world, if we are addressing the 21st century challenges with a century back rules, then it's not going to help. And there need to be updation. जैसे हम हिंदी में बोलते हैं नीरज कि अगर पानी लंबा टाइम खड़ा रहेगा तो उसमें स्टिंक होगा. If water stand still for a long time, it starts stinking. And that's what, if we are not updating the rules, it will be very difficult to address the challenges of the 21st century. Just imagine around 25 years back, Neeraj, would have you imagined that we are doing a podcast, doing a video conference back to back here, and then it will be disseminated to the larger audience? It was difficult. And if that is changing and the AI is coming, then we also need to update the rules. And why is need to update rules? In WTO, I keep negotiating agriculture. Now, what happened that many of the rules, especially in the food security, will remain outdated. It means that if you wanted to give support to the farmers, then you have their prices were fixed 40 years back, and which is gross injustice to the farmers. And that's why rules need to be updated. So enforceability is also important. Rules are important, but we also need to agree that these rules need to be updated, whether it's the United Nations, whether at the WTO or any other area. If the rules are not, we are not updating, it means that we are not able to address most of the emerging challenges. And in this regard, given the fragmentation of what is happening around the world, if you see, and how to update these rules. In the fragmented world, now what is the role of the BIMSTEC countries? BIMSTEC countries' role is to see that they should not the rule taker, they need to be rule shaper. These BIMSTEC country have to play important role. What are the emerging rules are coming in the multilateral level or any other fora? And if we remain rule taker, I think we are not able to address the challenges what the people in the BIMSTEC country are facing. And for this, for strengthening the BIMSTEC whole mechanism or this platform, what we required, we need dialogue, we need cooperation. And for this, I can say, if I make it very concluded, we need three T: trust, transparency, and togetherness. And this is how all seven countries can come together and address all the seven priority areas. Thank you very much.
So that's a very profound insight, and it reminds us of the enduring foundation of the global cooperation. So, what an insightful discussion, Professor Sharma. Thank you so much for your expert perspective on strengthening regional cooperation in a fractured multilateral system. And to our listeners, we hope this episode on reimagining the Bay of Bengal has deepened your understanding of regional dynamics and opportunities. So stay tuned for more discussions on the forces that shaping this vital discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi.